I sat there staring at my daughter, the same woman who had abandoned her autistic son for 11 years, now smiling in front of the judge with the perfect grin of a caring mother. "Your Honor, I call my son every week," Renee said, her voice trembling just enough to sound convincing. "I send money regularly. I have never abandoned my child." My heart froze. In her hands was a stack of documents that looked terrifyingly real. Visitation records, shared custody agreements, transfer receipts, all fake, but indistinguishable from the truth at a glance. Our lawyer leaned close and whispered, "Mrs. Douglas, if we can't prove these documents are forged, we'll lose." $3.2 million. That was how much Noah earned from the software he built himself. And because of that number, after 11 years of silence, Renee suddenly reappeared, demanding her rights as his mother. I turned to Noah, my grandson, 16 years old, the boy the world once said would never succeed. Too different, too difficult. They were wrong. But now, in the courtroom of Fulton County, with his biological mother weaving lies as smoothly as silk, I felt everything we had built begin to crumble. Noah leaned toward me, his voice calm, almost unsettlingly so. "Let her talk, Grandma." I froze. We were about to lose everything, and yet he wanted Renee to keep lying. But Noah just sat there, composed and unshaken, his eyes unreadable in a way I had never seen before. What I didn't know was that for the past 7 years, since the age of 9, Noah had been quietly preparing for this very moment. What I didn't know was that every grocery receipt I saved, every doctor's appointment I noted, every phone call Renee never made, he had scanned them all, stored them all, and linked them together into something far stronger than any testimony. What I didn't know was that the same boy who once couldn't look me in the eye was now about to stand before the court and do something even I never dared imagine. My name is Marian Douglas. I'm 68 years old. And this is the story of how an old woman raised an autistic boy the world had forgotten, and how that boy saved me with the very thing people once called his weakness: the truth. If you've listened this far and want to follow more true stories like this one, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Every subscription from you means the world to me. Now, can you guess what Noah had been preparing for 7 years that would make the entire courtroom fall silent in awe? Let's open the first door of this story together. November 2010. I remember every detail because it was the first Friday marking exactly 1 year since my husband passed away. I had grown used to living alone, used to the quiet, to dinners for one in this small house in Atlanta. 35 years of teaching elementary school had taught me how to organize everything, plan ahead, stay in control. But nothing could have prepared me for that evening. The doorbell rang at exactly 6. I was chopping vegetables in the kitchen, thinking it was probably a neighbor bringing over some pumpkin bread. But when I opened the door, I saw Renee, my daughter, standing there, beside a tiny boy with his hands clamped tightly over his ears. Noah, my 5-year-old grandson. I had only met him 3 times in my life, 3 brief meetings over 5 years, and each time Renee was in a hurry, always finding a reason to cut the visit short. "Mom," Renee said, avoiding my eyes, "I need you to watch Noah this weekend. I just need a little rest." Noah stood beside her, not looking at anyone, rocking gently, from heel to toe, toe to heel, in a steady rhythm, like a small clock trapped inside his own world. His backpack was tiny, so small I knew instantly there couldn't be much inside. "Renee," I said, my heart tightening, "Sweetheart, what's going on?" "I'll call you on Sunday." Then she turned away, walking quickly toward her old Honda Civic. "Renee!" "Wait." But she didn't look back. She didn't hug her son, didn't say goodbye. She just opened the car door, started the engine, and drove off. The taillights blinked once, then vanished at the end of the street. I stood frozen, staring until the car disappeared completely. In my head, her words from the last phone call echoed, "Autistic. That's what the doctor said." I don't know what to do anymore, but she had never explained what that really meant. And I, a teacher with 35 years of experience, didn't truly understand what it meant either, until that night. Noah still stood on the porch, still rocking, still covering his ears. "Noah, sweetheart," I called softly. "Come inside with Grandma, okay?" No response, no glance, no pause in the rocking. It was as if I didn't exist. I picked up his backpack. It was oddly light. Inside were only 2 changes of clothes, 1 towel, no toys, no blanket, nothing familiar. My chest tightened. "All right," I exhaled, opening the door wider. "Grandma will wait for you." 1 minute, 2. Then Noah stepped across the threshold, still covering his ears, moving cautiously as though the floor might collapse beneath him. I closed the door gently, but even the soft click of the lock, the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the heater, all those small household sounds made him flinch and press his hands tighter to his head. I had never seen a child so afraid of the world. He went straight to the corner of the room, crouched beside the bookshelf, hugging his knees, rocking back and forth. "Are you hungry?" I asked. No answer. "Would you like some water?" He just rocked faster. I poured water into a yellow plastic cup I'd kept since Renee was little, placing it on the floor, an arm's length away. He paused for a second, glanced at it, then turned back to the wall and kept rocking. I remember standing there for a long time, in that small, silent room, hearing only the faint breathing of a child trying to shield himself from the world. I thought I understood children. I'd taught thousands, but none had ever made me feel so helpless. At that moment, I didn't know that the second Noah stepped through that doorway, my life would change forever. That night was a disaster. I made fried chicken and fries. Renee once told me that's what he liked. But when I placed the plate on the table, Noah looked for a second, then turned away. I tried pasta. He pushed it aside. I made a sandwich. He didn't touch it. "What would you like to eat?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady even as my heart pounded with worry. Noah made a low humming sound in his throat, eyes fixed on the white wall behind me. In the end, I gave him a few saltine crackers. He ate 3. Just 3. Then stopped. A 5-year-old child can't live on 3 crackers. Bedtime was worse. I set up the sofa, tidied the living room, but when I tried to help him change, Noah pushed my hands away. "All right, sweetie, I understand. You can do it yourself." He stood still, didn't move. "Do you need Grandma's help?" I asked softly. No response. 20 minutes later, Noah changed by himself and climbed onto the sofa. I pulled the blanket up gently, just like I used to with Renee when she was little. Noah screamed, not cried. Screamed, a piercing sound, as if I had hurt him. I stepped back, heart racing. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." He threw the blanket onto the floor, trembling. I could only stand in the hallway, listening to his ragged breathing, watching through the crack in the door as he lay curled up, eyes wide open, no blanket, no rest. And I wondered what I had done wrong. Noah didn't sleep that night. I lay in my room, listening to the steady hum of his low moans. 2 a.m., 3 a.m. By 4, I couldn't bear it anymore. I got out of bed, put on my robe, and went downstairs. Noah was still awake, sitting upright on the sofa, rocking rhythmically and making that sound, eyes open, staring into nothing. "Noah?" I called softly. No reaction. I stood there, looking at my 5-year-old grandson, a child I didn't understand, didn't know how to help, didn't even know how to reach, and realized something terrifying. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Saturday morning, I called Renee. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. I left a voicemail. "Renee, please call me back. I need to know what Noah eats, how he sleeps. Please, honey, I need your help." No reply. All day. Not a single call. Sunday came. Still nothing. Monday, I tried again. Straight to voicemail. Tuesday, I drove to her old apartment. No one answered. A neighbor said she hadn't been seen since last week. Wednesday, I took Noah to see Dr. Miller, the pediatrician I'd known from my teaching days. He examined Noah carefully. Noah wouldn't make eye contact, wouldn't let him touch, unless I held his hand. "Mrs. Douglas," he said gently, "has anyone ever explained his condition to you clearly?" "Autism," I replied, voice trembling. "That's what my daughter said. But I don't really understand. I don't know what to do." Dr. Miller nodded and handed me a stack of documents. "He needs a full developmental assessment. Speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy. Is anyone coordinating his care? His mother, she was supposed to handle that. But now," my voice cracked, "now it's you," he said, "and I'll help." 2 weeks passed since the day Renee left. No call, no text, no explanation. I was 57, widowed, newly retired. I had dreamed of peaceful days, reading, gardening, traveling. Now I was raising a 5-year-old autistic boy I barely knew, a child who didn't speak, didn't meet my eyes, flinched at every sound, who ate only saltine crackers and sometimes a little scrambled egg, no salt, no pepper, cooked just right. But when I looked at Noah curled up in the corner of the room, rocking to his own rhythm, I knew one thing for certain. I would not abandon him the way Renee did, even if I was scared, even if I didn't know what I was doing, even if every morning I woke feeling like I was sinking deeper and deeper. I would stay, and I would learn. The first month was the hardest of my life, not because Noah was difficult, but because I kept trying to fix something that wasn't broken. I forced him to look me in the eyes when we talked, and he screamed. I tried to hug him when he was upset. He pushed me away. I changed his meals constantly to broaden his taste. He refused to eat at all. Each night, I lay in the dark, listening to Noah's soft hums from the next room, wondering if I was hurting him more than helping. Dr. Miller referred me to Dr. Lila Bennett, an autism specialist. I brought a notebook packed with questions. How do I make him look me in the eye? How do I make him stop rocking? How do I make him eat like other kids? Dr. Bennett, a black woman with short, curly hair and warm eyes, listened quietly without interrupting. When I finished, she gently placed her hand on mine. "Mrs. Douglas," she said softly, "you're asking the wrong questions." I looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "You're asking how to change Noah. The real question is, how to understand him." I fell silent. "Noah rocks back and forth not because something's wrong with him," she continued. "He does it to regulate himself, to feel safe in a world that's too bright, too loud, too overwhelming." "But," I tried to protest, "Noah doesn't avoid eye contact because he doesn't care. For him, eye contact feels like staring straight into headlights. It hurts." I sat there, letting her words sink in. For a whole month, I'd been trying to fix Noah. When he wasn't broken at all, he just needed to be understood. "What should I do then?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Observe," she said, "and listen, not with your ears, but with your eyes. Noah talks to you every day, just not with words." So I began to observe. On Tuesday morning, I noticed Noah always lined up his toy cars by color. Not just red, blue, yellow, but in a perfect gradient. Deep red, bright red, orange, yellow. "Beautiful, Noah," I whispered, without expecting a reaction. He didn't look at me, but his shoulders relaxed slightly. On Thursday, I saw he ate the same breakfast every morning, scrambled eggs and diagonally cut toast. Nothing on the plate was allowed to touch. I stopped trying to make him try new foods. Instead, I made the exact same breakfast, same time, same way. 3 days later, Noah looked at his plate, then turned toward me and gave a small nod, just one nod. But to me, it was a miracle. For the first time, Noah had reached out, to me, in his own way. Maybe loving a different kind of child isn't about teaching them to be like everyone else. Maybe it's about learning to step into their world, slower, quieter, more honestly. And sometimes, one small nod is all it takes to know you're finally on the right path. By week 6, I discovered his sound language. Noah feared noise, but not all sounds were painful. The vacuum cleaner? He screamed and ran. The refrigerator hum? It startled him, but he endured it. But rain? Noah would sit by the window perfectly still, straight-backed, no more rocking. I began playing soft music in the evenings. Mozart, Debussy, instrumental. Noah sat on the sofa, eyes closed, his face calm and peaceful. For the first time, I saw him truly relax. Dr. Bennett called it sensory seeking, the brain's way of finding balance. Every autistic child is a unique melody, and I had just begun learning Noah's song. By the 3rd month, I enrolled Noah in Morningside Elementary. The principal, Dr. Marcus Ellery, had that polite smile that hid judgment behind his eyes. "Mrs. Douglas," he said, "the file indicates Noah needs an individualized education plan." "I understand." I handed him the therapy documents. "He's nonverbal?" "He's learning. He started saying single words." "But not fully communicative?" "Not yet," I admitted. He nodded, but his expression said something else. "This child will be a burden." "We have a special program," he said. "Smaller classes, trained teachers. I want Noah in a regular classroom." He looked at me as if I'd said something absurd. "With his level of autism, he can learn," I cut in. "I've taught for 35 years. I know when a child can keep up. Noah can." He paused, then sighed. "We'll try 1 semester." "Thank you," I said, but inside I wasn't sure at all. On the first day of school, Noah clung to my hand so tightly it turned red. Ms. Keisha Patel, his kindergarten teacher, greeted him with a kind smile. "Hi, Noah." "You can sit in that corner if you like. It's quieter there." He looked where she pointed, a small chair beside the bookshelf. Then he looked at me, not quite in the eyes, but at my face, seeking permission. "Grandma will pick you up at 3 o'clock, I whispered. "I promise." Noah let go of my hand. He walked slowly to the quiet corner and sat down. I stood outside the classroom window, heart pounding. Had I just pushed him into a world too harsh for him? At 3 o'clock, I arrived right on time. Noah was already waiting by the door, backpack on, eyes gazing outside. "How was school?" I asked. No answer. But he didn't tremble, didn't scream. That night, Miss Patel called me. Noah didn't speak, but he sat quietly and observed. When I handed out drawing paper, he drew beautiful geometric patterns. When I read aloud, he tilted his head, listening. I smiled softly. "That's good, right?" "Very good, Mrs. Douglas. He just needs time, but not everyone had patience." The next month, I got a call from the principal's office. "Noah caused a disturbance during music class," Dr. Ellery said. "A disturbance how?" "He covered his ears and refused to participate. When the teacher tried to lower his hands, he screamed." I sighed. "How loud was the music?" "Excuse me?" "The volume. How loud?" "Noah has sensory issues. Loud sounds can cause him pain. All the other students tolerated it." "They're not Noah," I said, keeping my voice steady. "He needs noise-canceling headphones. That's his legal right under IDE, a silence." "We'll look into it," he finally said. The following week was the IEP meeting. I brought every document I had: therapy reports, education law printouts, doctor's notes. Across from me sat Dr. Ellery, Miss Patel, Mr. Harmon, the special education coordinator, and the school psychologist. "We believe Noah would do better in a specialized program," Mr. Harmon said, soft voice, firm tone, a specialized program, a nice way of saying remove him from the others. Noah is keeping up academically, I said. Ms. Patel, is he completing his work? Yes, she replied, but he doesn't interact much with peers. He's 6. He spent 5 years in silence. Now he sits in class, completes assignments, doesn't scream. That's progress. Dr. Ellery frowned. But it affects the learning environment. Is he disrupting anyone? I asked. No, but then what's the problem? That he's not like your majority? The room went silent. Then Ms. Patel spoke, quietly but firmly. I want Noah to stay. He's not disruptive. He just needs small adjustments. I wanted to hug that young teacher right then and there. They agreed, reluctantly, to let Noah stay in the regular classroom with accommodations, noise-canceling headphones, a quiet space, and extended time for tests. When the meeting ended, I stood up, my legs trembling. Ms. Patel walked me to the hallway. Mrs. Douglas, I just want you to know, I won't give up on Noah. I smiled and hugged her tightly, tears welling in my eyes. That evening, Noah sat on the living room floor, lining up his toy cars neatly. The warm light fell softly over his brown hair. I sat beside him, not too close, just close enough for him to feel I was there. Today I fought for you, I whispered, and I'll keep fighting. Every day, for as long as you need me. Noah didn't look up, but he leaned slightly toward me, just a little. Then he went back to arranging his cars. No words, no hugs, just one small, quiet gesture. But I understood. It was his way of saying, I hear you, I know. And for me, that was enough. When Noah turned 6, he spoke his first full sentence. It wasn't, I love you, Grandma, or thank you, like I had secretly hoped. It was a simple, unintentional question, but it pierced straight through my heart. One spring morning, I was making breakfast as always. Scrambled eggs, toast cut on the diagonal, the yellow plastic cup placed to the right of the plate. Noah sat at the table, writing in the small notebook I'd bought at the dollar store. In recent months, he had started drawing symbols, circles, straight lines, check marks. I didn't understand their meaning, but Dr. Lila Bennett told me to let him do it. This was how Noah organized his world. Why did Mom leave? I nearly dropped the pan. When I turned, Noah was still bent over his notebook, not looking at me, but he had just spoken. A complete sentence, with a subject, a verb, a question I felt every day, but had never known how to answer in a way that was right for him. I turned off the stove, sat down across from him, my hands trembling slightly. My girl, your mother. She said she couldn't. I tried to keep my voice steady. She said taking care of you was too hard. She wasn't strong enough. Noah gave a single nod, wrote something more, then kept staring at the page as if nothing had happened. But the hand holding the pencil trembled. I stood, finished making breakfast, set the plate in front of him, then went into the bathroom and cried. Cried because he had spoken, because of the question he asked, because I didn't know if my answer was enough for him. When Noah turned 7, the symbols turned into letters, then words, then sentences. Eggs, toast, school, home simple lines recording his day. I never snooped in his notebook. That was Noah's private space. But sometimes he'd leave it open on the table and I'd catch a glimpse. Grandma Marian makes eggs the right way. No screaming today. Ms. Patel lets me sit in the quiet corner. Good. The sound of rain. Like small observations, recorded in neat, square handwriting. Dr. Bennett said that was a good sign. Noah was processing the world, trying to make sense of it through language. At 8, he began noticing patterns other people didn't. One afternoon on the way to the grocery store, Noah looked out the window. The traffic light on 4th Street is wrong. How do you know? I asked, eyes on the road. Red lasts 45 seconds. The other's only 30 seconds. Not consistent. The following week, I tried counting. Noah was right, down to the second. At the store, he glanced at the receipt and pointed, Apples charged wrong. Sign says $2.99 per pound, but charged $3.02 per pound. I checked. Noah was right again. His brain didn't just memorize. It analyzed, compared, hunted down every inconsistency in a world that needed to be consistent for him to feel safe. That's when I understood. For Noah, progress wasn't speaking more or holding eye contact longer. It was when the world around him finally made sense. When the pieces fit, he was calm. When one piece was off, his whole body swayed. And my job was to help those pieces fit, bit by bit. But things weren't always easy. In December, when Noah was 9, I had a parent-teacher meeting with his new third-grade teacher, Mrs. Janice Huang, younger than Ms. Keisha Patel, stricter and visibly less patient. "Mrs. Douglas, Noah disrupted class yesterday," she said, sitting behind her desk like a judge. My stomach tightened. What did he do? I was teaching long division. Noah stood up and corrected me in front of the class. Was he right? She hesitated. That's not the point. Then what is the point? He embarrassed me. He needs to learn when to speak and when to be quiet. I took a breath, reining in my frustration. "Mrs. Huang, Noah is autistic. When he sees an error, he corrects it. That's not disrespect. That's how his brain works." "But the other children learn to—" "The other children aren't Noah," I said, more sharply than I intended. "He wasn't trying to embarrass you." He was helping. The meeting ended in chilly silence. That evening, while we were eating, Noah asked, "Why do they want me to be different?" "Who?" "Teachers, classmates, everyone. They want me to act like I'm not me." How do you explain to a 9-year-old that the world fears what it doesn't understand? "Because they're afraid of people who see more than they do," I finally said. "You see patterns, truths, things they miss. That makes them uneasy." Noah thought about it, nodded, and kept eating. But that night, I heard him crying in his room, soft, muffled, as if he was trying not to make noise. I stood outside his door, hand on the knob, then let it fall. Noah needed space. Still, hearing your child cry and not being able to hold him, that's a different kind of pain. That spring, Noah began asking about documents. "Do you have my birth certificate?" I was doing laundry. "Of course." "Why do you ask?" "I want to see it." I found the yellowed paper with Noah's tiny footprints. He studied it for a long time, running his fingers over each line. "Do you have any more papers?" "School enrollment, Social Security, everything with my name, I do. But why?" "I just want to see it all." Make sure everything is there. I thought he was trying to piece together the past, to understand why Renee left, to see what his life looked like on paper. It made sense for a child who organized the world in lists and files. I helped him scan everything onto the tablet I'd bought for his 9th birthday, birth certificate, medical records, every legal document in the cabinet. Noah saved them carefully, creating folders with labels I didn't fully understand. "What are you building?" I asked. "A system. So nothing gets lost." I kissed the top of his head. "All right, honey." As long as it helps you, I thought he was coping with the past. I didn't know he was preparing for the future. The summer Noah turned 10, he discovered something that changed everything. Programming. One afternoon, I found him at the kitchen table with my old laptop open. The screen was full of words that looked like a foreign language. "What are you doing?" "Learning Python." "What is Python?" "A programming language. I'm following a tutorial." I leaned closer. Variables, functions, loops, things I didn't understand. "Is this for school?" "No, I just want to learn." I left him alone. What always worked with Noah. Let him pursue what interested him. All summer, while other kids went to baseball camp or swimming lessons, Noah wrote code. I brought lunch. He ate without taking his eyes off the screen. The yellow cup sat beside the laptop, full of water he forgot to drink. In August, he showed me small programs. This one sorts files by date. This one finds duplicate files. This one checks if a file's been changed. Impressive, Noah. He nodded and kept typing. In early September, I spent the rest of my savings to buy him a proper computer. Not that old laptop that took 5 minutes to start. At the store, the salesman asked, "What will you use it for?" "Programming." "How old are you?" 12. He smiled. "Perfect age to start. You'll go far." Noah didn't reply, just waited while I paid. At home, he set it up in his room. I made him promise to still come out for meals and keep a regular bedtime. He agreed, but I could see his mind had already gone back into the world of code where I couldn't follow. One evening in October, he called me into his room. "I want to show you something." I sat on the edge of the bed. He opened a program. "What is it?" "Watch." He opened a simple text document and ran the program. Long strings of numbers appeared on the screen. "That's the document's signature, like a fingerprint." "Oh." I nodded, still catching up. He changed one word in the document, saved it, ran the program again. The string was completely different. "See?" "The signature changes. That means the document was altered." "So you know when someone edits something?" "Yes." And when, and how many times he looked at me, actually met my eyes for a moment, to make sure everything stays true. I thought of the school meetings, of times people said one thing and later insisted they'd said something else. I had wished for proof. "Brilliant, Noah." He turned back to the screen. "It's just pattern recognition. Digital instead of physical, just pattern recognition, as if that wasn't everything." When Noah was 13, the project ballooned. "I want to digitize your entire binder," he said over breakfast. "All the school meeting notes." I peered over my coffee. "That's a lot." "I know, but I want everything in the system." "So nothing gets lost or changed," I thought for a moment. Those binders were years of fighting, years of advocacy, years of proof that Noah wasn't what people labeled him to be. "All right. But you have to do the scanning. My back won't survive it." It took us weeks. I hauled the binders out. Noah scanned every page. IEP notes from 2014, therapy evaluations from 2012, report cards, progress notes, incident reports, every scrap of paper telling Noah's story. But he didn't just scan. He worked magic on each file, adding layers of information I couldn't see. "What are you adding?" I asked. "Timestamps, verification codes, hashes. Each document links to the one before and after it, like a chain. If someone alters one link, the whole chain breaks. Why would anyone want to alter them?" He looked at me. "Why did Dr. Ellery try to move me out when I was 9? I nodded. It made sense. "So this protects the truth?" "Yes." I watched him work. The child who once couldn't speak, who screamed at the vacuum cleaner, who couldn't meet anyone's eyes, was now building something I barely understood, something powerful. "I'm so proud of you." He nodded and kept scanning. Our relationship had changed. We didn't need many words. I'd say one sentence. He'd nod. He'd show me something on the computer. I'd say, "Well done." We ate dinner together every day. Same time, same seats. The yellow cup was always to the right of his plate. Comfort. That's what we had. The comfortable silence of being with someone who understands you don't have to fill every space with noise. Noah turned 14 in November 2019. One afternoon, he asked me a question that made my heart ache. "Do you still have anything from when I first came to live with you?" I was making dinner. "What do you mean?" "Receipts? Calendars? Bank statements? Anything from 2010 or 2011? I turned to look at him. "Why do you need those?" "I just want to see them." Old worry washed over me, but I still led him out to the garage and showed him the boxes I'd never thrown away, because I'm not the throwing away type. Old tax files, utility bills, bank statements from a decade ago, the calendars I'd crammed with appointments and errands in tiny, crowded handwriting. "You kept all of this?" Noah asked. "I taught elementary school. We keep everything." He started rifling through the boxes, pulled out the 2010 calendar, flipped to November, and traced each day with his finger. "Why do you need that?" I asked quietly. I need to know what actually happened, not what people say happened, what truly happened. I sat down on an upside-down carton. This is about your mother. He didn't answer right away, just kept looking at the calendar, at the days where I'd written, Renee brings Noah, then try fried chicken, call Renee, doctor apt. Finally, he said, I need to know the timeline. When everything happened, what's real? My chest tightened. He was trying to process it all, the abandonment, the years without a mother, the unanswered questions. We can scan everything, I said. Whatever you need. We hauled the boxes inside and spent the next month scanning grocery receipts, bank statements proving I'd never received a cent from Renee, phone bills confirming she never called, the calendars recording our routines, the ordinary days proving she had left. I thought he was building a timeline of his childhood, using paperwork and evidence to understand the past. Why even the grocery receipts? I asked once, watching him scan a faded slip from 2011. They have dates. They show where we were, what we bought. They're evidence. Evidence of what? Of what happened. Of what's real. I didn't ask more. If this was how he healed, I would help. After that, Noah started staying up later. I went to bed at 10 and still heard the steady tapping of keys through the wall. Around midnight, I'd get up to make a sandwich or slice an apple, leave it on his desk without a word. Thank you, he murmured, eyes never leaving the screen. Some nights, I woke at 2 or 3 and saw light leaking through the crack under his door. Noah, you need to sleep. Almost done. But he was never almost done. One night in February, I brought him tea at 1 a.m. The room was cold. 3 monitors glowed in rotation. Code, documents, data. What are you making? I asked. He stopped typing and turned to me. Something that helps people know what's real and what's fake. What actually happened versus what someone claims happened. That matters a lot to you. Yes. Because of your mother. He thought for a moment. Because people lie, and sometimes you need proof. I kissed the top of his head. His hair had reached his ears. It needed a trim. Don't stay up all night. I won't. But in the morning, I'd still find him asleep at the desk, head on his arms, the screens still lit. I covered him with a blanket and went downstairs to make breakfast. An hour later, he woke as if nothing had happened. I was proud of him, of his persistence, his intelligence, his determination to make something meaningful. I just didn't understand what it would ultimately be used for. I thought he was healing the past. I didn't know he was forging armor for the future. Sleepless nights, scanned files piling up, strings of numbers that meant nothing to me but were signatures of truth to Noah. By then, I was sure of only one thing. When the door to the past opened, he didn't just step through. He brought a flashlight, a map, and a compass he built himself. Noah turned 15 in the spring of 2020, mid-pandemic. The world shut down. Everyone moved online. Noah barely noticed. He'd been living in his room and computer for years. I want to show you something, he said one afternoon in May. I followed him to his room. All 3 monitors lit up at once. He opened a program with a clean, minimalist interface. No flashy colors, just panels, buttons, and text. This is it, the verification system. What does it do? He clicked through the screens, explaining features I only half understood. It analyzes documents, checks whether they've been altered, when they were created, whether the signature matches known patterns. It catches fakes. I watched the demo run on a sample document. Numbers appearing, charts shifting, a results table popping up. So, if someone forges something, this will catch it? Yes. Metadata, digital fingerprints, patterns. It sees what people miss. That's wonderful, Noah. He nodded. I'm going to sell it. Sell it to whom? Security firms, anti-fraud companies, anyone who needs to verify authenticity. He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. My 15-year-old grandson would sell software to companies. "Do you know how to do that?" I asked. "I've researched it." Of course he had. That month, he started contacting companies, sending emails written in a professional tone that I barely needed to edit. In truth, his blunt clarity was better than most business emails I'd ever seen. The first deal came in June. A small security company bought a license for $20,000. I stared at the number on the screen. $20,000. "Less than the real value," he said. "But it's proof of concept. Now I have a customer." He was right. Once word spread that the system works, other companies asked for demos. Noah took calls right there in his room, speaking in that calm voice, explaining technical ideas without dumbing them down. From the hallway, I heard him say, "The algorithm compares hash values across multiple verification layers." And somehow, the people on the other end understood, or pretended to. Noah turned 16 in November 2020. By January 2021, he had 6 more clients and enough in the bank to pay for college. Twice. Then the big offers arrived. A tech company wanted exclusivity. An anti-fraud firm wanted a full license. Numbers jumped from thousands to hundreds of thousands, then to millions. "I need help," Noah said in February. "I don't know how to evaluate the contracts." I found a business attorney through a former colleague, Kenji Sato, who specialized in intellectual property and software licensing. On Saturday morning, he came to our kitchen table and laid out 3 offers. "These are all significant," he said, looking at Noah. "You've built something very valuable." "Which is best?" Noah asked. Kenji walked him through each option, time-based licensing or an outright sale. "I want to sell it entirely," Noah said at last. "I don't want to manage licensing, support, or updates. Sell it and be done." Kenji looked surprised. "Are you sure?" "Long-term licensing could mean more money. The acquisition includes a non-compete," Noah said. "After selling, I can't build a similar verification product for 5 years." "Standard," Kenji nodded. "Does that bother you?" "No, I'm done with this kind of software." I glanced at him. He spoke with the certainty of someone who had already charted the next step. In March, he sold for $3.2 million. $3.2 million. I couldn't process the number. 35 years in a classroom, I might have earned half that, before taxes. Somehow, the local news found out. They wanted a feature on a local autistic teen building revolutionary security software. I didn't want them in the house. Didn't want Noah turned into an inspirational story. But he said yes. The reporter, Jasmine Lee, a young woman, came on a Thursday afternoon. She sat in the living room and asked to film Noah working at his computer. "Can you explain what the software does?" she asked. "It verifies document authenticity through pattern recognition and metadata analysis," Noah answered, looking straight into the lens the way he looked at anyone, directly. "It detects forgeries people miss." "What made you want to build this?" I clenched my hands, but Noah replied evenly, "I want to know what's real." People lie. Documents don't, if you know how to read them correctly. Jasmine smiled. "That's profound. Do you have plans for the money?" "Not yet." She tried a few more questions, but Noah's answers were always short and factual, not the kind of soft human interest TV loves. 20 minutes later, she thanked us and left. On Friday night, the segment aired, "Local Teen Builds Revolutionary Security Software." 2 minutes of interview, driving music, shots of Noah at the screen, focused and brilliant. After we watched, I asked, "How do you feel?" "Fine." But in the days that followed, I noticed something had changed. He didn't celebrate. He wasn't excited about the money or the attention. He just waited and watched. Sometimes I'd find him at the kitchen table holding the yellow cup, not drinking, just holding it. "Are you okay?" "Okay." But he wasn't okay. There was a thin, taut wire in the air, something I couldn't name. as if Noah were waiting, as if he knew something was coming. And 2 weeks after the story aired, the doorbell rang. Tuesday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I wasn't expecting anyone. Noah was in his room. I could hear the light, steady tapping of keys through the closed door. I was in the kitchen chopping vegetables for a salad when the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and time seemed to stall. A woman in an expensive gray suit, hair immaculate, makeup precise. Next to her, a man in a black suit carrying a leather briefcase. But my eyes didn't stay on him. They locked on to the woman. Renee. The last time I saw my daughter was 11 years ago, when she left Noah on my porch and drove away. Now she stood here, older, fine lines around her mouth, jaw clenched, but still her. My stomach dropped. My hands went numb. For a moment, I couldn't move, couldn't speak, could barely breathe. "Hi, Mom," Renee said, her voice flat and tired. But her eyes slid past me into the house. "Where's Noah?" She even said his name wrong at first, and then corrected herself. "Renee," I exhaled, my voice shaking. Why are you here?" The man spoke, smooth and professional. "I'm Colton Pierce, counsel for Ms. Renee Douglas. We'd like to discuss Noah's situation with you." "Situation?" I repeated, my mouth dry. Renee gave a taut, artificial smile. "Mom, can we come in?" This is important. I should have said no, should have shut the door. But I stood there, rooted, my brain lagging behind reality. Then I heard Noah's voice from the hallway behind me. "Come in." I turned. Noah stood there, hands loose at his sides, face completely blank. No surprise, no emotion, nothing. He looked at Renee the way he looked at a mistimed traffic signal or a wrong price tag, analyzing, calculating. My feet moved back on their own. They stepped inside, Renee and her lawyer, and a wave of nausea rose in my throat. We sat at the kitchen table, the very table where Noah and I ate breakfast every day, where we sorted school meeting notes, scanned documents, drew lines for his future. Now Renee sat there, arms crossed, while the lawyer opened his briefcase. "Mrs. Douglas," Colton Pierce began, in a voice thoroughly trained, "we're here to discuss custody and financial guardianship." Custody? The words landed like a punch to the gut. My client, Renee Douglas, has maintained her parental rights with respect to Noah and seeks to resume active custody. I stared. "He's 16. "Precisely," Pierce said, "still a minor." And my client has never legally terminated her parental rights. She abandoned him for 11 years. No calls, no letters, nothing. My voice cracked. Renee spoke for the first time, soft, sorrowful, perfectly remorseful. "Mom, I know you've done a wonderful job raising Noah, but he needs his mother right now, especially with the money and the attention. He needs guidance." "He has guidance," I ground out. Pierce pulled out a stack of papers, documents with seals and signatures that looked impeccably official. "These show Ms. Douglas maintained legal maternal status. Here are records of financial support and a contact log over the years. Under the law, she has custody rights and, since Noah is under 18, the right to manage his assets until majority." My heart pounded. I glanced at the papers. Notarizations, dates, red stamps, everything by the book. "They're fake," I said, but I could hear the weakness in my own voice. "They've been notarized and properly filed," Pierce replied evenly, "unless you can prove otherwise." I looked at Noah. He sat still, eyes fixed on Renee, his face expressionless, but something in his gaze, something I couldn't read. "Noah," I whispered, "what do we do?" He looked at me for 1 second, then turned back to Renee. "We should hire a lawyer," he said calmly. "Hiring a lawyer is easy. Using one is hard. I found Ava Mensah through a friend, a family law attorney with 20 years' experience. 3 days after Renee appeared, Ava came to the house, because I didn't have the courage to go to her office. I laid out all the binders, year after year of school records, therapy notes, medical appointments, every scrap proving I had raised Noah. My hands shook the whole time I carried them to the kitchen table. Noah sat beside me, quiet, observing as always. Ava spread out Renee's file, the very documents Pierce had brought, reading each page, checking signatures, examining seals. After over an hour, she looked up, and I knew the answer before she spoke. "They look legitimate," she said carefully. "They're fake," I said. "She's lying. She hasn't seen him in 11 years. I believe you." Ava softened her tone. "But Mrs. Douglas, do you have hard proof that these documents are forged?" I pulled my binders closer. "I have everything. Every school meeting, every doctor's appointment, every therapy session." Ava skimmed and nodded slowly. "These are excellent. They establish you as the primary caregiver. But without technical evidence that Renee's papers are fraudulent, a judge could lean her way. Why?" The word slipped out like a plea. "Because she never terminated her parental rights on paper. There's no court order transferring custody. Schools and doctors accepted you informally, legally." Ava hesitated. "Have you ever filed for formal guardianship?" The room went cold. "I thought I didn't need to," I whispered. "She abandoned him, I thought." "I understand," Ava said gently. "But without documentation of that abandonment, without a signed relinquishment, on paper, she's still Noah's mother." I couldn't breathe. "So she could take him?" "She's not aiming for physical custody. Noah is 16. Courts rarely force a teenager to move. She's targeting financial guardianship, control of Noah's assets until he turns 18. $3.2 million, all because of that number. Can we fight this?" I asked. "Yes, but you need to understand, her file carries weight. Unless we prove her documents are fake, we could lose Ava wasn't wrong." I looked at Noah. He sat motionless, arms folded on the table, face blank. "Noah," my voice faltered, "do you understand what's happening?" "Yes." "Are you scared?" He thought for a moment. "No." How could he not be, when I was terrified? After all these years, everything we had built, about to slip away. Ava left. I collapsed at the kitchen table and burst into tears. "We're going to lose you," I sobbed. "After everything, after 11 years, we're going to lose." Noah stood. He didn't say a word. He went to his room and closed the door. I wanted him to say, "It'll be okay." Wanted him to show something, fear, anger, anything. But he just left me there. I cried alone for an hour. 2 weeks later, depositions began. Renee went first. She sat ramrod straight in the law firm's conference room, hair-styled, light makeup, a soft gray sweater that made her look like a gentle mother. Pierce asked. She answered smoothly. "Please describe your involvement in Noah's life over the past 11 years." I attempted to maintain consistent contact. When possible, I visited monthly. I sent financial support via money orders. I called often to check on his progress. "Why didn't you take physical custody?" I believed it was better for Noah to remain with my mother for stability while I worked through personal challenges. But I never stopped being his mother. She recited dates, specific months she had visited, amounts she had sent. December 2012, $300. April 2014, $500. On and on, a meticulous financial record of payments that never existed. "Why are you now seeking a custodial arrangement?" "Because Noah has significant assets that need proper management. He's nearing adulthood. I want to help him transition to make up for lost time." She looked at me as she said it. Sad eyes, remorseful smile. I wanted to scream liar, but Ava had warned me, "Stay calm." Let her spin the story. Ava pulled me outside after Renee's portion. Her testimony is detailed, consistent, persuasive to a judge. "It's all lies." "I know." "But can you prove it?" I couldn't. 3 days later, it was Noah's turn. Pierce asked about his childhood, memories of his mother, her involvement. Do you remember your mother visiting? I don't recall specific instances. What about phone calls? I'd have to check the records. Did she send you money? I don't remember receiving money from her. Pierce looked satisfied, assuming Noah's hazy memory supported Renee's story. He didn't know. Then Ava's turn. Describe your relationship with your grandmother. She takes care of me. Cooks, helps with school. She's always there. Do you want to keep living with her? Yes. Do you want your mother to control your finances? No. Short, direct, true. But it felt weak against Renee's carefully scripted lies. On the way out, Ava was honest. You did well, but without proof that Renee's documents are fake, this will be very difficult. How difficult? We could lose. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, imagining Noah being taken from me, Renee seizing his money, and 2 long years until 18. 3 a.m., light leaked from under his door. I cracked it open. Noah sat before 3 blazing monitors. One showed a river of code. The other 2 were crammed with documents and data. Noah, it's 3 in the morning. He didn't turn. He kept typing. I know. I'm almost done. Done with what? My records. I moved closer and saw a spreadsheet full of dates, files named with surgical precision. I recognized my bank statements, calendar entries, call logs. Noah, I don't know what to do, I choked. I don't know how to fight this. He stopped typing. He didn't turn. Tomorrow, you just have to tell the truth. The truth isn't enough. She has paperwork, evidence, fake, but still evidence. Tell the truth, he repeated. I wanted to shake him, wanted him to grasp the severity, but Noah just sat there, calm, focused, as if losing him didn't matter. I went back to bed. I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark, terrified. On the other side of the wall, Noah's keyboard kept going. Until dawn. If the enemy is lies stamped with seals, then Noah's weapon wasn't tears or pleading. It was data, time, and a system he built to force the truth to speak. The question was, would the court listen? Morning came, whether I wanted it to or not. I got up at 6, made breakfast that no one touched. Noah came out of his room at 7, showered, and put on the button-down shirt we'd bought just for court. He looked older than 16, tired, but calm. Are you ready? I asked, my voice trembling. Yes. We drove to the Fulton County Family Court in silence. My hands shook on the wheel. Noah stared out the window, face unreadable. Ava Mensah met us on the steps. Remember, stay calm. Let me present. Noah, answer questions directly. Don't volunteer extra information. Noah nodded. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights, the smell of old paper and floor wax. Judge Carla Whitfield, late 50s, keen eyes, gray hair pulled back, sat on the bench. Renee was at the petitioner's table beside Colton Pierce. She was styled carefully, muted tones, minimal jewelry, soft hair, every inch the concerned mother. We took our seats, Ava to my left, Noah to my right. All rise, the clerk called. The hearing began. Pierce stood, his voice as smooth as rehearsal. He painted a picture of Renee Cooper, a devoted mother, continuously involved despite personal challenges. He laid out the evidence: parental rights never terminated, steady financial support, regular contact. On the evidence table, custody forms, joint custody agreements, financial records were neatly stacked, all fake, but very convincing. Judge Whitfield reviewed them, then asked Renee, Ms. Cooper, can you describe your involvement in Noah's life over the past 11 years? Renee's voice was warm and steady. I tried to maintain connection whenever possible. I visited when circumstances allowed, sent money to help with his care, and called regularly to check on his progress. Why didn't you maintain physical custody? I believed it was better for Noah to have stability with my mother while I addressed personal issues. But I never abandoned him. I never stopped being his mother. The judge asked more. Renee answered neatly. December 2013, she visited for his birthday. April 2015, she sent $500 for therapy. May 2017, she called to discuss school. All lies, but detailed and consistent. Then it was Ava's turn. She presented my binders, years of school meetings, therapy records, medical appointments, everything proving I raised Noah alone. But as she spoke, I caught the judge's look. Compassion? Yes. Doubt? Also yes. Ms. Mensah, Judge Whitfield said, these records show Mrs. Douglas as the primary caregiver, but I don't see formal guardianship paperwork, no court order transferring custody, no legal termination of parental rights. My chest tightened. Your Honor, Ava said carefully, Renee Cooper abandoned Noah when he was 5. My client has documentation of that abandonment, but there is no signed relinquishment of parental rights by Ms. Cooper. Without a signed termination of parental rights, her petition has a legal basis, the judge said flatly. The room seemed to tilt. I couldn't catch my breath. Renee glanced at Pierce and gave the faintest smile. She thought she'd won. My heart hammered. I turned to Noah, desperate for something, anything to cling to. She's lying, I whispered. We have to stop her. Noah tilted his head and murmured, let her talk. In a room where seals and signatures can mislead, the only thing that can't be bent is time's trace. If the enemy is flawless-looking documents, Noah's weapon wasn't tears. It was data, linkage, and evidence prepared over 7 years. The question was, would the court hear a truth that could defend itself? The judge looked at Noah. Young man, do you wish to speak? A brief pause. Noah stood. Yes, Your Honor. I have evidence. I went cold. Evidence? I had already given Ava everything I had. Approach, the judge said. Noah lifted a bag. I hadn't even noticed he'd brought it. Walked to the witness stand. Steady, composed, as if he'd done this 100 times. He opened his laptop. Permission to connect to the display, Your Honor? What do you intend to present? Document authenticity verification and a timeline of evidence. His voice was clear, direct, as always. Pierce shot up. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We received no prior notice. Your client filed fraudulent documents 6 weeks ago, Noah replied, succinct. I'll now present analysis of those very documents. The judge nodded. Proceed. Keep it relevant. The large screen lit up. Renee's custody file appeared. Seals, signatures, dates all nicely in order. These documents are dated 2011 to 2020, Noah said, but the metadata shows they were created 6 weeks ago, right after the news segment aired about my software sale. He clicked through creation dates, file properties, edit histories, everything brand new. Pierce objected. Metadata can be manipulated. Not in this case, Noah said evenly. The signature verification is inconsistent. He pulled up Renee's genuine signature on my birth certificate, 2005, then ran his signature analysis program on the custody papers. Strings of numbers, comparison tables, statistical results populated the screen. Stroke dynamics don't match. Letter formation is inconsistent. Spacing and slant diverge. These signatures are forgeries. The judge leaned forward. On what basis do you draw that conclusion? I built this verification system, Noah said. It analyzes document authenticity. It's what I sold last month. But you're 16. Yes, Your Honor. She paused a beat. Then, continue. Noah opened a timeline. These are my records. I've been documenting my life since I was 9 spreadsheets, scanned documents, photos, each time-stamped, cross-referenced, verified in linkage. Ms. Cooper says she visited in December 2013. Here's my grandmother's calendar for that month. Every entry, her name is absent. Here's a photo from that week with a timestamp. Here's the therapy note from December 9th. Therapist confirms no mother present. Click. December 2013. No Renee. Ms. Cooper says she sent money orders. Here are 7 years of my grandmother's bank statements. Not a single deposit from Renee Cooper statements appeared. Each transaction highlighted. Sources clear. No Renee. She says she called regularly. These are carrier logs from 2010 to present. 0 calls from her number after December 24th, 2010. In April 2015, she says she sent $500 for therapy. No such entry in the statements. My grandmother's calendar notes self-payment. Here's the receipt. Every claim Renee made, Noah dismantled with evidence. No $500 in April 2015. No call in May 2017. No visit in November 2019. Pierce stood. Your Honor, this evidence was not disclosed during discovery. Because you filed fraudulent documents 6 weeks ago, Noah replied. No one could fabricate this in 6 weeks. Then how did you? I didn't build it in 6 weeks. I built it over 7 years. The past 6 weeks were just analysis of these particular documents. The judge stared at Noah. You've been recording your life for 7 years? Yes, Your Honor. Every calendar entry my grandmother wrote, every receipt she kept, every therapy session, every school meeting, every bank transaction, all time-stamped, cross-referenced, verified. The system makes retroactive alteration impossible. He explained the chained linkage across documents, the verification codes proving nothing had been altered. So when Ms. Cooper says she visited monthly, sent money, called frequently, I can demonstrate she did not, because I have evidence of what actually happened. What is real? The courtroom was silent. The judge turned to Renee. Ms. Cooper, how do you explain these discrepancies? Renee's face went pale. She looked at Pierce. Metadata can be wrong. Dates can. I mean, I did visit. I did send money. Specifically when? December 2013. I remember. Proof? Receipts, photos, anything? I don't keep records. I was there. But you produced detailed financial records of money orders. Yes, I mean, those... She unraveled, contradicting herself. The confident mother vanished. Ms. Cooper, Judge Whitfield said coolly, did you or did you not falsify custody documents? No. I mean, my lawyer said... Pierce had gone gray. The judge looked back at the screen. The timeline, timestamps, cross-checked bank and phone records, everything aligned. One truth emerged. Renee had been absent for 11 years. I've seen enough, she said. She ruled on the spot. No recess, no chambers conference. Renee Cooper, I find your testimony not credible and your documents fraudulent. Full physical and legal custody, including guardianship, is awarded to Marian Douglas. This matter is referred to the District Attorney's Office for investigation of perjury and fraud gavel. Done. Outside, in the afternoon sun, I finally understood. You knew, I said. You knew she'd come back. Noah nodded. That's why you built the system. Not just to sell, but to protect us. Both, he said. But yes, to protect us. Since when? Since I was 9. When I heard Mr. Ellery try to push me out of the regular class. When I saw how people can flip black to white and twist the truth. His voice was quiet, all fact. I knew one day someone might try to take me, or to control me. So I built the evidence, made it unbreakable, made it unchangeable. I looked at my 16-year-old grandson, the boy people once said would never succeed. Too different, too difficult. They were wrong. He didn't just succeed. He built something stronger than any lie. The truth. 6 months after the trial, life looked different. Not because everything changed overnight, but because we could finally breathe without constant fear. Noah couldn't keep working in data security. The non-compete from the verification system sale was very clear, but he didn't mind. "I'm done with that kind of software," Noah said one morning at breakfast. Eggs and toast, as always, the yellow plastic cup set to the right of the plate, exactly in place. "I want to do something else." "What kind of else?" "Software testing, quality assurance. I want to hire people like me." I set my coffee cup down. "People like you?" "Autistic people. We see patterns others miss." Noah's first hire was Marcus Chen. I knew the name immediately. Marcus had been my student at Morningside Elementary 20 years earlier. In 4th grade, I'd had to fight the school board to keep him in the general classroom. "The teachers said I'd never hold a job," Marcus said during the interview. He was 28 now, tall, thin, with a habit of avoiding eye contact. "They were wrong," Noah replied simply. "Start Monday." Then came Keisha Thompson, David Osei, Lily Park. One by one, my former students, the kids adults had labeled too different, too difficult, unable to contribute. Noah hired them all. One September afternoon, I stopped by his office. A small space in a complex near downtown Atlanta. 6 desks, everyone wearing headphones, no background music, no pointless chatter, no extra meetings, just work, orderly, focused. Marcus saw me and slipped off his headphones. "Mrs. Douglas," his voice caught, "you once told the principal I wasn't broken, just different." I couldn't say a word. I just nodded. Noah stepped out from the small back room. "You're here. You said you wanted to show me something." He led me inside. On the wall, in clean, sharp type, "Different is not less." I stood looking at those words, the very words I'd said to Noah years ago, when teachers tried to move him, when classmates didn't understand him, when the world tried to force him into a mold he didn't belong to. "You remembered," I whispered. "You told me when I was 8, after the IEP meeting. I didn't believe it then, but you kept saying it, and proving it." My throat tightened. "Now it's my turn to say it to them." Noah nodded toward the outer room. "Each person I hire. Each person someone once called not enough." Renee received 2 years probation and 500 hours of community service at an autism resource center in Decatur. 3 months into her term, I brought books, sensory toys, and parent materials to donate. Sandra, the center's director, helped me unload. "That volunteer there," Sandra nodded toward the reading room, "keeps asking for extra hours. She says she's learning things she should have learned years ago." Through the glass, I saw Renee sitting cross-legged on the floor, reading to 3 nonverbal children. Her voice slow, gentle, no demands for response, just reading. We looked at each other quietly through the glass. She looked exhausted, humbled. Not the woman who had arrived with a lawyer and a stack of forged papers. I said nothing. I stood a moment, then left. Some things need no words. One Tuesday evening in October, I brought dinner to Noah's apartment. He'd moved out in August, only 3 blocks from me. Close enough for nightly visits, far enough for his own space. The yellow cup was still on the kitchen shelf, chipped at the rim, still his favorite. We ate at his small table, roast chicken and vegetables, each item placed separately, not touching. Quiet, easy. I was clearing the plates when Noah set down his phone. "Marian." I turned. He was looking at his hands. "I know what you gave up for me." I sat, waiting. "Your friends stopped calling. You stopped traveling. I heard you once turn down a trip because you couldn't leave me." I remembered our book club's Charleston trip and how Noah was struggling with schedule changes that year. "Marian," Noah said more slowly, "you could have sent me away, like she did. The school suggested it. You could have lived your own life, Noah. But you didn't. You stayed. Only the fridge hummed. That matters, he said softly. When I was little, I didn't know how to say thank you. Now I do. He looked up, not quite into my eyes, but to my forehead, far closer than before. You chose me. Every day, even on the hardest days, my voice shook. You're my grandson. That isn't a choice. It is, he said, and you chose me. I reached across the table, placing my hand near his, not touching, just near, so he'd know I was there. You're worth every day, I said. Noah gave a small nod, and then something rare happened. He put his hand over mine. Just for a second, light pressure, but enough. Another 6 months passed. In the spring, when Noah turned 17, his company had 15 employees, all autistic or otherwise neurodivergent. People once rejected, now creating value together. Marcus discovered a critical flaw in a banking system that the partners' entire engineering team had missed, saving them millions. That night, Noah texted, "Grandma, remember when they said we can't? Now we're all proving them wrong." I sat at the kitchen table, looked at the message, and cried. Not from sadness, but from pride so full it ached. Noah graduated high school in May. Not valedictorian. He didn't care about rankings. But he held his diploma and an acceptance letter to Georgia Tech for computer science. In the Morningside gym, I watched him cross the stage. Dr. Ellery was still principal, holding Noah's handshake a beat longer for the photographer. I remembered the meeting 11 years ago when he wanted Noah in a special class. Now Noah stood here, a graduate, a company founder, college-bound. After the ceremony, Ms. Patel, his kindergarten teacher, now teaching 5th grade, found me in the crowd. "Mrs. Douglas?" Her eyes wet. "I always knew he'd make it." Even when he didn't speak, I knew you fought for him, I said. When others gave up, you stayed. You taught me that, she smiled through tears, by not giving up on Noah, by never stopping believing. That evening, Noah and I ate at the little corner place. Nothing fancy. The same table, his usual order. "Are you proud?" he asked. "More than I can say." He nodded, eyes on his napkin. "I won't be far. Georgia Tech is still in Atlanta. I'll keep Tuesday dinners." My throat caught. "You don't have to." "I want to." Tuesdays, same time. That schedule is good. I smiled through tears. "Then Tuesday." "Tuesday," he confirmed. A year later, at 18, and in his first semester at Georgia Tech, I got a call from an unknown number. "Mrs. Douglas?" A woman's voice, tentative. "Yes?" It's Renee." I stood still in my kitchen, phone to my ear. "I'm not calling to ask for forgiveness," she said quickly. "I mean, I'm sorry. Very sorry. But that's not why I'm calling." "Then why?" My voice came out colder than I intended. I volunteered at the Autism Center for 18 months. 4 months after finishing my sentence, I stayed on. Silence. "I'm learning about autism, about communication, about things I should have learned when Noah was little. I can't go back, but I can help other kids, help other parents not make my mistakes." I didn't know what to say. "I don't expect forgiveness," Renee said, voice breaking. "I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know. I see it now. What I missed. Who I missed. An extraordinary boy," I said softly. "Yes, and an extraordinary mother who raised him." She hung up. I stood in the kitchen holding the phone. What did I feel? Still anger, a little. Sadness for what was lost, for what can't be fixed. And perhaps the seed of forgiveness. Not today, maybe never completely, but a beginning. By Noah's 21st birthday, the company had 40 employees and moved to a bigger office near Midtown. He invited me to the opening. I wore the navy dress Noah said, "Looks professional and not too bright." The office was packed. Clients, staff, families. Across the big wall, "Different is not less. We see what others miss." Noah stood before the team. 40 people, all neurodivergent, all once told, "You can't." 11 years ago, Noah began, his voice still flat and direct, yet resonant and clear. Someone told me, "Different is not less." I didn't believe it then. He looked my way. But my grandmother kept saying it, kept proving it, kept fighting for me when others said to let me go. The room fell quiet. This company exists because someone believed in me when the world didn't. Because someone stayed when leaving would have been easier. Because someone taught me that truth matters, documents matter, and proving what is real matters most. His eyes met mine, this time a real, deliberate, full gaze. So this is for Marian Douglas, who taught me that different is not less, and proved it by never giving up. Applause exploded, but I didn't hear it. I saw only Noah, the child who hadn't spoken for 5 years, who covered his ears and rocked, who cried through the night, now standing steady before the company he built. And I realized I didn't fix him. I simply gave him room to become who he already was. That night, back home, I sat at the kitchen table with tea, the table where I'd made eggs every morning, where we sorted papers, scanned documents, drew a future. My phone buzzed, a text from Noah. "Thank you. For everything, for staying," I typed back. "You're worth every day." Then I added, "And I would do it all again, every sleepless night, every fight with the school, every moment of doubt, because you are worth it." 3 dots. Then, "Grandma, I know now." So that's my story. People ask if I have regrets, if I wish I'd had a life of my own, instead of spending those years raising the grandson my daughter abandoned. I look at Noah, the boy they said would never speak, never connect, never succeed, and I see a young man building a multi-million-dollar company, hiring those society pushed aside, creating a system strong enough to shatter lies in open court. But those achievements aren't what I'm proudest of. I'm proud that when the world said Noah was broken, he chose to believe me, when I told him he was simply different. Proud that when his mother left, he didn't learn to hate. He learned to document the truth. Proud that when they tried to take him from me, he didn't fight with rage. He used evidence, a foundation that cannot be shaken, one we built together. Regrets? Number. I witnessed a miracle, not because I fixed him, but because I never tried to fix what wasn't broken. And if you are where I once was, could you forgive your daughter for abandoning your grandson? I don't know if I can ever fully forgive Renee. Maybe never. But I know this. I would do it all again. Every long night, every battle, every trembling moment. Because Noah is worth it. And if you're raising a child the world calls too different, they are worth it too. Don't stop fighting for them. Don't stop believing in them. And never, never try to fix what isn't broken. Because often, difference isn't something to cure. It's a superpower waiting to be unlocked. If this story moved you, subscribe so you don't miss the next episodes, where we keep telling stories of perseverance, truth, and the differences that change lives. When you stand before someone the world doesn't believe in, what will you choose? Leave a comment. I want to hear your answer.